on East 102nd Street and took off running towards Lexington Avenue at about 2:45 a.m. He was under arrest for trespassing at an East 103rd Street apartment building. Collins, an ex-con who did 19 years in prison for attempted murder, was found with crack cocaine, heroin, marijuana, and a silencer in his possession, and a firearm in his possession when he was initially arrested. The granddaughter of actor Morgan Freeman was stabbed to death on the street by her deranged boyfriend as he yelled, "Get out, devils," in Washington Heights early yesterday. Police found Dina Hines lying in the middle of West 162nd Street near St. Nicholas Avenue with several knife wounds to her chest around 3 a.m. "Get out, devils. I cast you out, devils, in the name of Jesus Christ," the 30-year-old man repeatedly said, according to witnesses at the scene. The man, who is believed to be her current boyfriend, was taken into custody, and the knife was recovered at the scene. Hines was rushed to Harlem Hospital Center, but she could not be saved. The world will never know her artistry and talent and how much she had to offer, Morgan Freeman said in a statement. On the national news, Julian Bond, a lifelong civil rights leader and former board chairman of the NAACP, has died at 75 years old. Bond died Saturday night after a brief illness in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, where he served with the Southern Poverty Law Center since the 70s. The Tennessee native was on the forefront of the 1960s civil rights movement and was among activists who demanded equal rights for African Americans. Bond was part of a group of students taught by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at Morehouse College during the height of the civil rights movement in the 60s. Around that time, Bond helped lead one of the first student sit-ins in Atlanta. Bond was elected to the Georgia House of Representatives in 1969, but his white colleagues in the House refused to let him take his seat because of his opposition to the Vietnam War. He inspired a generation to stand up for its rights, according to the NAACP. Bond is survived by his wife, Pamela, and 5 children. Harlem Week promotes and celebrates what Harlem was, is, and will be. Harlem Week is a series of events throughout the summer that bring together all age groups and cultures to celebrate the unique and diverse essence of Harlem. This celebration of Harlem Week offers over 100 events throughout the months of July and August, attracting approximately 2 million attendees from all over New York and around the world. The streets were alive with the sound of music yesterday, dance, and many other cultural events, and WHCR was broadcasting live from 2 locations during yesterday's events. It's 81 degrees, hot, hazy, humid, muggy day. High expected in the 90s. Yankees win, Mets lose. This is Bill DeFawcett with WHCR 90.3 News. Next news report at 6 p.m. Bulletins are alert at any time. And now back to you.
You're listening to WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. Gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. I think I can make it now. The pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. Gonna be
Good morning. Welcome to Mental Health for Better Living. I'm your host, Dr. Leon Dickerson. Mental Health for Better Living is a show that explores the challenges to mental well-being, and as a collective group of concerned individuals, both lay and professional, together we address multiple mental health problems and then focus on solutions as they impact the individual, the family, spiritual life, and our community. You can listen to the show by logging on to www.whcr.org and just click on the Listen Live button, and you can even see us right here in the studio while you listen. I am a psychotherapist with an office right here in the village of Harlem. I will provide more information about my practice at the end of the show. Mental Health for Better Living has designated the second Monday of the month to focus on addiction and addiction topics that will bring attention and solutions to substance abuse problems and affect the individual, family systems, spiritual life, and our community. We are hoping to open up an ongoing dialogue around addiction and addiction issues that impact our community. Although this is the third Monday of the month, we thought that we would extend our topic on drugs and on drug programming so that we could get a thorough start in this dialogue that we are attempting to start. And this morning we're going to take a very close look at Alcoholics Anonymous and other 12-step programs. Joining me in this discussion this morning, we have with us our returning guest, Mr. Curtis Evans. Mr. Curtis Evans was born and raised in Columbus, Georgia. After meeting with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Julian Bond, who just recently passed, he joined the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, and taught literacy courses at various Negro Baptist churches. And he graduated. Mr. Curtis began his undergraduate studies at Penn State University, and was drafted into the Army during his second year of college. After receiving an honorable discharge as a decorated veteran of the Vietnam era, he returned to complete college. Mr. Evans has a master's degree and certificate in public health and a concentration in hospital administration. A graduate degree and public health concentration with an master's degree in human services and a postgraduate certification in community health care centers administration. Currently, he is a credentialed alcoholism counselor and a substance abuse credential prevention professional, and a New York State Office of Alcohol and Substance Abuse Services, and a faculty member of the State Office of Substance Abuse Services. Mr. Evans developed the curriculum for the KSAC 350, our certificate program at Narco Freedom. Under the program, he has just created a school where we learned 60 degrees of studying to get the KSAC training. Mr. Curtis Evans, welcome to the program. Are you on the line?
Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Evans?
Yes, good morning.
Yes, welcome. We're getting a lot of feedback.
Okay, I'm getting an echo here, but good morning.
Okay, hold on for a minute.
If he has a radio on, he can't speak.
Right.
Should I turn my radio off?
Yeah, you have to turn your radio off.
Very good. All right, fine.
Okay, I'm so sorry. In my introduction this morning, I sort of got the papers all mixed up that I read from. And I was just all over the place this morning. So please forgive me for if I didn't come across accurately as I should have concerning you.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Great. Okay. Listen, we have discussed over the last few weeks. We spoke about the merging agencies, OMH and OASIS are merging together. We've spoken various topics on different how drugs influence the lyrics of songs. We have spoken about various approaches to treatment in terms of the MICA and the CAMI, and how that plays out in the drug treatment field. Last week we had I think a pretty good start. It's just a start because even after the show all that week, I couldn't stop hearing about K2, the synthetic marijuana all over TV. And right. So we spoke on that, and I'm quite sure we're going to return Okay, to that. However, today I would like to take a break in dealing with the science of addiction and talk about a program that's been in existence before 1939. It was formed early in the 30s, but it came out as Alcoholic Anonymous back in 1939. And although we have again billions of dollars that we spend annually on the so-called drug wars and what have you, and we seem to be losing this war. I mean, again, like I mentioned a few weeks ago, President Nixon back in 1973, he launched this whole idea of the war on drugs, which was supposed to end drugs forever. It was supposed to do away with the whole idea of drugs. But as you know, and everybody knows, especially those who have members suffering, coming out of drug programs, coming out of 30-day drug programs, and then overdosing the very next day. What did they do for 30 days in these programs? And we like to blame the victim. We like to say, well, and nobody put a needle in his arm. Yeah, but you got to, you just collected $30,000.
Right.
Okay, from an insurance company, and you're supposed to, let us know if you can help, or and then that brings the attention to what you do in terms of educating these counselors. Last week, you and I had a good laugh about the guy running by the window.
Yes,
and so I got a little call. They felt that the fellow felt that I should not be making fun of directors of programs. Well, something, I treat directors of programs in my office. Due to confidentiality, I'm not going to explain, but I treat counselors who are actually working in these drug programs using drugs.
Right.
Okay, so let's be careful now about this big secret that we have going in these treatment programs. Let's be careful about that, because you see, I've been working for 40 years in drug treatment programs, and no time do you feel comfortable. Let's say if you're a recovering person, no time do you feel comfortable going to your boss saying, listen, I'm shooting dope on the weekend.
Yes.
Okay, and I need to go get help. Okay, no, everybody keeps it quiet. When these people show up, they show up in either overdosed, they didn't come to work for a few days, and then when we go like searching their home, they find them in the bathroom with a needle in their arm,
Right.
and also I qualify myself. I used to be the coordinator, the substance abuse coordinator at on the detox unit at North General Hospital. So from my office, I saw many counselors come through, that had relapsed. Okay, so we have to be very careful about how we want to present ourselves. We are people too, So anyway, what I wanted to talk about was the 12-step program, because after all is said and done, Alcoholic Anonymous, and then we're going to speak about other 12-step program, remains the most successful program in the treatment of alcoholism. Okay, and the only program that can guarantee you recovery, sobriety, if you follow what? Those steps. If you follow those steps, you are guaranteed. I can't guarantee you that. You can come to my office, 10 times a day. If I meet you in the supermarket, I can't talk with you because some type of statute or some type of rule says that I can't fraternize with my clients or what have you. But with the 12-step program, you can have a cup of coffee with your sponsor. You can go on a Sunday, a Monday, New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. You can go anytime you want. It's almost a 24/7 program. So what I would like to do today, Mr. Evans, is I want to give a brief introduction by way of definition and understanding of the history of Alcoholic Anonymous, and then we can jump right in, okay?
Okay, well, Reverend, I'm sorry. Doc, listen, I need to say, first of all, that I wouldn't be talking to you this morning probably if it wasn't for Julian Bond. I wanted to just acknowledge the fact that he's been a major influence in my life, and I'm really thankful for that. Thank God I was able to give him his flowers while he lived. So I'm not going to say a whole lot other than the fact that it was a valuable experience having him early on in my life and causing me to direct my life toward human service.
Well, I'm so glad that you're taking this moment. I think we should, and I'm so glad that you thought of it to mention Mr. Julian Bond. But I too owe him a debt of gratitude.
Okay.
Because out of my poverty as a child growing up, I was able to look up and see him talking on my behalf, while sitting on the back of buses and being, oppressed, as we,
Right.
as we all know, what he stood for.
Right.
We had him to look at. He was
Yes.
a beacon of light, a beacon of hope. Somebody,
Right.
he could have went another way. He could have made millions of dollars as an attorney.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
He was an icon in a number of levels, not only in civil rights, but just in a man who is able to have a political career that could have been just, had he decided not to stand up for civil rights, he could have very easily been in the legislature very early on, because
Yeah.
he was highly favorable to a number of people.
Yeah, and back then, unfortunately, back then there was a skin color issue,
Absolutely.
If
yes.
you were light, you were right, and if you're black, get back and stuff like that. Light-skinned blacks were glad they were light-skinned. Okay,
Absolutely.
we had that thing going, and in the African American community. I don't know about anybody else, but we had that thing going. So he had the looks, he had the the good hair, the straight hair, that we all used to talk about. So he could have went a whole nother direction.
And
Okay,
his speech, the man's ability to speak was
it was
just
excellent.
phenomenal.
It was
He
phenomenal.
used good diction, and he had a good educational background. His father was president of Lincoln University.
Okay. So
So he has an educated family background. With most of us, I'm the first person in my family to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that wasn't the case with him. So it showed. But we'll send a prayer up for his soul, and thank God that we had him in our lives.
Right, and the thing is that I'm the first to graduate college in my family too.
Yes.
So all the obstacles that we presented, and
Right.
so yes, so we're going to keep his family in prayer, and we're going to keep keep the hope alive, as Jesse Jackson would say.
Yes, yes.
So anyway, getting back to our topic for the day, alcoholic and other 12-step programs. I'm going to read off just a brief history of Alcoholics Anonymous, and then we can take it from there.
Okay.
Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, the first 12-step fellowship, was founded in Akron, Ohio, on August 11, 1938. Although some speculate the date as being June 10th, 1935, and that's the date on which Dr. Bob had his last drink. And it was started by a fellow by the name of Bill Wilson and also Dr. Bob, known to AA members as Bill W. and Dr. Bob. They established a tradition within the anonymous 12-step programs of using only first names at the level of press, radio, and film. AA chapters, Alcoholics Anonymous chapters, were increasingly in numbers during the 1930s and 40s, and it was a guiding principle for gradually defined as the 12 traditions. Okay, so you have the 12-step and also the 12 traditions. Okay,
Right.
and the primary purpose was to carry the message. Now, this was the primary purpose: to carry the message to alcoholics who still suffer, and consequently, drug addicts who do not suffer from specific alcohol-involved addiction, but also in the need of a recovery program. So the principles of AA have been used in many, many numbers of other fellowships designed for those recovering from various pathologies. It's interesting that the 12 steps, and then I'm going to let you chime in for a minute, but then we're going to actually walk through the 12 steps. But it's interesting over the years that the 12 steps of the 12-step program, which was originally Alcoholics Anonymous, we found out that we can apply those steps to almost any form of addiction.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. And let me just underscore it, Dr. Dickinson, how useful it is in true recovery, and how it has helped a number of people not only maintain abstinence, but to gain sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important early on in our discussion here to make a distinction between the two. Abstinence means that you are no longer using. Okay, you're no longer picking up the drug or the drink or whatever. Sobriety means that you're working on something. It means that you're dealing with the character defects or whatever issues you may have had, whatever the underlying issues that you may have had that causes you to become a victim of drugs. So I think it's important to note that the support, the ongoing support that AA provides is one of the ways of assuring people that not only can they stop using the drug or alcohol, but it also assures them that they will have support dealing with some of the other issues. Many of us have identified early on with the fact that addiction is a symbol of other things, of other underlying issues that is going on with a person's life. Sometimes the last thing you do is you pick up. I mean, you try a number of things before you pick up, and your life begins to spiral down and become so unmanageable and the pain is so unbearable until you pick up. Well, after that happens, and after you begin to try to get sober, you need the support not only to stop using, but to continue to live life on life's terms.
Right.
And that's exactly what AA does.
Right.
I think it's important to note that, Doc.
Right, it is. And it's also important to note the paradoxical nature of Alcoholics Anonymous, because you and I on this show have spoken about the importance of education, the importance of, understanding the science of recovery. And in doing that, sometimes we get locked in. Okay, there are certain boundaries that are created when we think like that. Although I totally agree that I wrote a book on addiction. Freudian concepts apply of id, ego, superego applied to addiction. Okay, which is purely dealing with the science, of psychology. However, okay, Alcoholics Anonymous from the very beginning was a personalized 101 experience.
Right.
Doctor, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And let me just chime in.
Jump right in. Jump right in.
We've come full circle with this. Now, what we're training as an educator, what I'm now training are people to become recovery coaches.
Right.
Because we realize that the treatment programs can only do so much.
Exactly.
And that the folk need someone to hold their hand. Use the verbal. Use that as a statement of support. For a lot longer period of time than the treatment programs provide. Exactly. And you need someone there to deal with every issue of your life that might be problematic.
Right, exactly. And, and again, I'm in no way knocking, because it would be impossible to do so successfully, OASIS or all of the different agencies that have come up over the years, to help addiction. We have to find a way how to divvy up, the money, okay, in terms of what we need to fight this, this terrible social disorder. Okay,
Absolutely.
Okay, but the fact still remains is that, the counselor in a drug treatment program, when they talk to a patient, they have to document, in some type of systematic order what happened.
Right.
Okay, you see, and I know years ago, okay, and even starting out as a recovering, counselor myself, back in the 70s, I used to put on the top of my resume, ex-addict, a counselor, an ex-addict counselor, and sometimes I got hired just on that. I remember sitting in an interview, and I sat down, and the director came in, the program director came in, and he said, "Listen, I only want to say one thing." I said, "What do you want to say?" He says, "Are you in recovery?" I said, "Yeah." "You're hired."
Right.
That was it.
Absolutely. Is that right? There's a fraternity.
Yeah.
And hopefully, being a part of that fraternity, you could actually map out for somebody else who was having similar struggles the way out of the cycle of addiction, pain, and shame.
Right.
But you see, what you knew in those days wasn't in writing. You knew it because of your experience. You had expert knowledge because of your own bout with addiction.
Exactly.
But now what is happening is that is being put in writing by a number of people who haven't had the experience, and then as a result, many are becoming famous, and many of the terms that we're now using is actually things that we know already, but there's no name was put into place academically.
Yeah.
So that's important to note, that the knowledge has been out there. It just had not always been, getting back to that word again, documented.
But
that's why documentation is so important right now.
You got that right. But back in 1972, if you were a social worker, okay, and not having ever used heroin or drink alcohol, and you got hired in a drug treatment program, you had a miserable time.
Absolutely.
You had a miserable time because the idea was, if you didn't shoot dope, you can't tell me nothing. Okay, well, and that was the biggest mistake that was allowed to be made. That only people in recovery can help people in recovery. Because that director who shook my hand and said, "Leon, you're hired because you're in recovery." Okay, I told him, "Yeah, I'm in recovery from heroin," but he didn't know that I was still drinking.
Yes.
Okay, I was an alcoholic.
Sure.
Okay, you follow. See, so there was a whole lot of things that went wrong, and with that, that's why I call it a paradox. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Doc, I think it's important also to understand that controversy that we talked about just a moment ago, you just mentioned, still exists. It hasn't gone anywhere. There's still people coming into treatment, challenging counselors in the same way, saying to them, have you used? And if you haven't, you really can't do much to help me.
Right.
So that's an important factor. And there's another factor too. Some of the retaliative actions taken by counselors is that they feel that AA and sometimes NA are not as effective, because what they do is they tend to distract the person from they're actually working on themselves. Now, personally, I don't agree with that, but I'd like to hear your comments on it, because I've gone to programs. I've been doing this probably as long as you have. I've gone to programs where folks didn't want to mention anything about spirituality whatsoever. They felt that was a way of a client actually not dealing with the issues and the responsibility that he or she has for his or her recovery. I'd like you just to speak on that for a moment.
Okay, I will. Behind every so-called idea or a movement, which exists sometimes only in the confines of the walls of a program, because again, back in the 60s, 70s, okay, if you walked into a program and the program director had a goatee and a ponytail, everybody in the program had a goatee and a ponytail. Okay, everybody was like a mass-produced replica of the direct, and talked like him. They would move his hands like him, arms like him. Okay, so that was a lot of ignorance, because the 12-step program is a spiritually based program. Okay, Dr. Bob, the physician who helped founded it, found religion.
Right.
Okay, he found religion, and it was the Christian religion. Okay, but they found out that that you can bring your own version of your higher power, and that's God as you know Him. Okay, so back then when they were saying don't talk about religion, don't bring Allah or Jesus Christ, anybody in here with this, the whole 12-step program is considered a gift from God. Okay, because if you count the number of times that God or the higher power is mentioned in the 12-step program, is 9 times, 9 different times, okay, that God or a higher power is mentioned in those 12 steps. Okay, now what that means is this, in terms of statistics, do the math, 9 out of 12. Okay, that's right. A lot of times that we're going to be talking about a higher power. As a matter of fact, we're going to read off the second step of the 12-step program, okay. Says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could what? Restore us to sanity. Right. Okay, so right before you even get started in the 12 steps, you are now having to deal with God. Right. Okay, so I'm going to read the 12 steps in a minute, but that whole idea of closing out, and blocking out certain ideas, okay, or even spiritual ideas, okay, I think was a gross error, to do something like that, because then you make people feel, something. It doesn't go too far away from. We discussed last week how alcoholics don't want to sit around hardcore drug addicts. Remember?
Right, exactly. There is the diversity that sometimes is that's perpetuated by the system itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the question beckons, and I think that we need to maybe it's not at this time, maybe some other time, to take a look at what our experience has been in people actually experiencing recovery without spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
The question is it possible or is it probable that one can actually get to sobriety without dealing with sometimes the spiritual needs or in many other instances the spiritual void that's associated with recovery? I won't introduce that subject. You didn't introduce it, so I won't. But I just want you to know that question is in the back of my head, and at some point I'm going to bring it to the forum.
Well, you can bring it to the forefront when we come back off of our break, because I can see right now I'm not going to even touch nothing what I prepared, but that's okay.
Okay.
You know, every time you and I get together, we seem to do pretty good, dancing together, okay? So I want to hear that, okay? And then I want to, when we come back, I want to read off the 12 steps of the 12-step program, because a lot of people, they hear about 12 steps, but they really don't get to understand what each step signifies, okay? So we'll be back in 2 minutes, and then we'll continue with that thought of spirituality. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
I can see clearly now the rain is gone.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
All obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. I think I can make it now. The pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. Look all around, there's nothing but blue sky. Look straight ahead, nothing but blue I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. Gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day.
Mic check, mic check.
Keep it locked on WHCR 90.3 FM.
Okay.
New York.
Welcome back. You're listening to Mental Health for Better Living, WHCR 90.3 FM. I'm your host, Dr. Leon Dickerson, and we have with us this morning Mr. Curtis Evans, and we're discussing Alcoholic Anonymous and other 12-step programs. And we also took a moment to give a special tribute and mention to the late Julian Bond, who passed away this week.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Evans, welcome back to Mental Health for Better Living.
Well, thanks, Doc.
Okay.
Can I pose the question at this point?
Yes.
The question is this: can one actually realize sobriety? Can one overcome the throes of addiction without some spirituality component?
No.
Is that a possibility?
Impossible.
Or, yes.
Impossible. Because if I put on my minister's hat, I'm going to tell you up front now, alcoholism and addiction is demonic. Okay? It's demonic. Okay? What addiction does to a family, what it does to a person is absolutely demonic. If you have any understanding of, let's say, God and the devil or hell, it is the worst thing that can happen. Ask any recovering alcoholic, ask any recovering person, have your addiction taken you to hell and back? And they will definitely agree, okay? So it's a very bad thing, for a father to not be able to take care of his family, and for whole careers. And I'm talking about drugs will mess up your entire career. That's why we call the consequences severe. Okay,
Right.
Okay, and there's one thing strange thing about drug addiction and abuse on any form, like gambling, sex, food, drugs. They're all part of the same definition of addiction, which is a behavior that gets us in trouble, and despite the trouble the behavior gets us into, we continue the behavior. That's the definition of addiction. So what that means is that everybody who gets caught up in any form of addiction is really expressing, in other words, sex, drugs, alcohol, and gambling are expressions of the same addiction.
Right.
Because they
Absolutely.
because they all fall under the same definition. Okay? So when you talk about spirituality, let's just read off the 12-step program. The 12-step or the 12-step program, and I think I can speak on step 2, and that may be as far. I don't know how far we can go. Okay,
Okay.
The 12-step program, it consists of 12 steps, and I'm going to read off the steps, and then we can get into maybe the foreword that appeared in the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, that speaks very specifically on how this whole agency program started. Okay. The first step says, we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Okay, that's the first step.
Right.
Okay, it used to be thought that you had to hit a bottom in order to really be ready, for treatment. But now we all know that anyone can go to school and learn about addiction, and then you can come in off your addiction with education, just knowing at what point of the progression of the addiction you're in. But the idea of admitting that you were powerless, that means that your drinking has gotten you to a point, okay, where you probably have lost everything meaningful to you.
Right.
Okay, and you've gotten to the point, homeless. You've been in the hospital for detox 20 different times. Okay, and so at some point you have to admit. We call it surrendering.
Yes.
Okay, you have to surrender. Okay, and by doing that, you admit that you are powerless over your alcohol, and then over the years they put over drugs or over cocaine or over love or whatever you want to put it over. Okay, but you're
Right.
powerless over your addiction, and that our lives have become what? Unmanageable.
Unmanageable.
Which means, right. You're
There's been I'm sorry to jump in. I just don't want to forget this point. I have had a lot of difficulty as a counselor. I was a counselor for many years with the first step and the whole issue of powerlessness. Most folks don't want to give up. They want to somehow say, no, if I'll become too vulnerable if I say I'm powerless over addiction. And I think the doc, maybe you need to explain that what that really means. It doesn't mean that you're giving up anything except drugs. It doesn't mean that you are actually just becoming, to use some language of the street, you're not becoming a victim, which is like a victim, like I'm proud. Clients have said to me, Doc, and I'm going to give you a further explanation here. Listen, Curtis, I can stop using drugs and I think I can become sober, but I don't ever want to be a square. I don't ever want to lose my street edge and not know what's going on out here and someone can take advantage of me. And that's a difficulty I have with saying I'm powerless. Would you speak to that, please?
Yeah, that person is suffering from what we call denial. Denial is a psychological defense mechanism that's really useful. Denial is a good defense mechanism to use. Okay, we just cannot think about everything that's going bad in our lives, and then get anything done. However, let's say if I get in, let's say if I owe something and the man is going to come by my house to repossess something, and I decide to go teach school that day. I can't keep that on my mind. I can't keep what's going to happen at home on my mind. So my brain and my mind work together to go into denial, where I'm actually not even thinking about it. Okay, and, points of the day I do. Now, but when that same defense mechanism happens in an addicted person, that person uses more or does more of the addiction. Okay, in other words, when an alcoholic, by getting the reality of the consequences out of the consciousness, then that allows him to pick up more, pick up his drug of choice or behavior. Okay, you see. So when a person says, "Oh, I can stop," they're in denial. Or when a person says, "I only drink beer." Like, over the years, I've learned to ask him, I only drink beer. I don't drink vodka like that guy across the street. I only drink beer. Then I say, okay, you only drink beer. What kind of beer are you drinking? Old English 800. Coke liquor, Okay, I mean, so even if they were drinking Miller Lite, they're drinking alcohol.
Sure.
Okay,
sure.
You see, so once a person gets addicted, okay, to anything, okay, their minds are also caught up, okay, in this world of denial, and by the way, that's the first thing we have to break through. And I think that when the first step, when it says here, we admitted we were powerless. See, we keep thinking that the person who admits that he or she is powerless, that they have some sort of control over even admitting that. No, I mean, even if you didn't say you were powerless, you're in the street. You're living out of a shelter system.
Sure,
okay?
Absolutely.
And
now, let me, Doc, I don't want to cut you off, but I want to ask you to elaborate on this. Have you found that the more sophisticated you are, the more sophisticated your denial is?
Well, no, I don't think that there's a correlation.
Okay.
Between who your character, and because addiction cuts right through it. Okay, I think God bless him and everything, but I think our President Clinton was a very sophisticated guy. I think Bill Cosby is a very sophisticated guy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we may not want to be able to coordinate that who you are, because that's a trick of the addiction. Okay, you see, because I can look like Dr. Dickerson, and I can act like Dr. Dickerson, and I can talk like Dr. Dickerson, but I go home at night and close my bathroom door and get high.
Okay.
You see, so it's hard to detect. It's almost like when Jesus Christ exposed Judas. If you know the story, they were at the Last Supper. Jesus Christ said, "One of y'all, okay, is a thief. I'm sorry, is a devil." Okay,
right.
Meaning that you're going to betray me. Okay, one of you, and all the other disciples says, "Who, me? Is it going to be who?" Like they were surprised. So so that means that what that means is that Judas hung out with Christ and the 12 disciples for almost 3 years.
That's right.
Okay, and nobody detected who he really was. Okay, so I don't go with that. Even in the church sometimes, he don't look like he's saved, or he don't shout, or she doesn't shout, so therefore they can't be saved, or they point fingers at people. He don't look like us, and I'm not going to hang out with the Baptists, and I'm not going to hang out with the Methodists, and we just got it so well and good. When you look at the Bible, Jesus Christ said, "Do not judge."
Yes.
You see, so a person who comes to you and says, "Listen, I haven't been able to pay my rent, in 3 months." Now this is Dr. Dickerson. That person may have on a Brooks Brothers suit.
Right.
Okay, but if he's telling me I haven't paid my rent in 3 months, I'm going to suspect something. Let me give you a better example. When I was directing programs, I would be interviewing a person, for a counselor's position. It never failed, Mr. Evans. They got to bring up at some point that they're in recovery.
Right.
They got to bring that up at some point. They got to bring it up, and so I'm getting ready, to fold the paper. I say, you look pretty good here. And the guy says, "Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, I'm also in recovery."
Right.
I said, "Wait a minute." I sit right back down. I says, "You're in recovery from what?" Well, I thought I would mention that. I said, "Okay, so you mentioned it. Okay, so now, but why did you mention that? I don't understand. How long have you been in recovery? 12 years. Okay, then I would say something like, "What did you use out there?" Now he's getting embarrassed. I mean,
Right.
did you shoot dope or did you snort it or what? And then I would look back and I like this person. And then I would tell him if I was bent on hiring the person, I would tell him, listen, let me explain something to you, okay? I don't want to hear I'm getting ready to pay you $50,000 a year.
Right.
Okay, and now you asking me, I've never met you before in my life, and you're going to ask me the first time I ever meet you that you use drugs, and I'm going to hire you for $50,000 a year? I don't think so.
Right.
Keep that to yourself, and you shouldn't have used drugs in the first place. All these ex-addicts walking around talking about, well, at least I ain't shooting dope. Or, well, I'm not shooting. Like as if, you get a prize for not shooting. You done robbed your mother, you robbed your father, you robbed the grocery store. When you go to the Christmas parties, everybody got to hold their pocketbooks. Okay, you see, so let's be humble a little bit, with this whole thing. So, no, spirituality is, I think, without God, okay, on some level, that's why the 12-step program says, you can bring whatever God you want to bring in. But I think it's the concept of the higher power. And that goes with the second step. Came to believe, now this is powerful, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Now, back in 1939, that power was Jesus Christ.
Right.
Okay, that was the original 12-step religion was Christianity. But let's look at what it says here. Came to believe. Now, the first step, we admit it, that's the only step that you got to do in its entirety. You can't work on the first step. You got to do that. You have to complete that step before you get to the second step. But all the steps after that, you can work on.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
Came to
talk about
let me just finish. Excuse me.
What does this actually mean nowadays when people are actually saying that my higher power can be that tree there?
Well, the idea is this, okay? Let me just finish reading the second step.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. Came to believe. The second step says came. It says came, but really the first 12 steps had we in front of it. It had we in front of every step. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Now, the most important part here, yes, the higher power, okay, is very important in terms of it being God, or they have went as far back as to say you can bring whatever understanding of God with you on this step. But the important part is this, that they're asking a power greater than themselves to restore them to what? To sanity, not to mental. An addict isn't mentally ill. An addict is crazy. Okay, an addict, it's insanity for me to kill my family like drugs help me to do. You see, so the power greater than myself is anything that I hold greater than myself, because my mother couldn't stop me when I was using. My wife, who I love so much, couldn't stop me. If you don't believe I love my wife so much, put me on a lie detector machine and ask me, did you love your wife so much when you were shooting dope? And I'm going to pass it every time. Right. Okay, but she couldn't stop me from using. Okay, see, so by the time I do the first step, when I admit that I'm powerless, by the time I get there, I done lost everything, and I don't, and I'm in the street. Okay, and I'm ready to surrender. Okay, then I can hear about the higher power thing, and that's why they say came to believe. You have to work on that. Okay, because see, your addiction knows what you are and who you are. Okay. Let's say if you had a row of books. Remember the old encyclopedias? Okay, yes. Britannicas. Let's say you had a row of books on your library shelf, but none of the books had any writings on them. But the third book from the left was your life. It was who you are. Your addiction, okay, if it had a body, would walk in and grab that third book from the left.
Is that why they say that your addiction oftentimes is predicated on your deepest secrets?
Of course, the whole idea of addiction thrives on secrecy.
Yes.
Okay, nobody got it. Nobody can know. Nobody, right. Okay, that's the whole idea. Once you shine light on the addiction, it runs away like Dracula in on a sunny day.
Yes.
Okay, you see, and that's why, I had one fellow who said that he had a very close family, but every second Sunday they would go eat and they would drink wine or whatever, and he was having a hard time. But everybody in the family knew he was a raving alcoholic. And so he was crying to me in therapy, and he was saying, I don't know what to do. If I don't go, they're going to get upset and mad. But if I do go, I got to suffer about not drinking. I said, let's do this. I said, everybody know who you are. Everybody know that you're in recovery. Everybody's happy that you're sober. Next time you go, to the dinner, just take a risk. Just say, fellas, I'm thinking about drinking. Okay, just say that. Okay, and he did it, and they said, wait a minute, whoa! They stopped the wine, and they got they bring some water and soda out here. Okay, you know, everybody was very happy. Okay, to not drink at that event,
and supportive of him, which is important.
And very supportive of him. Okay.
Now you're a psychotherapist. Now that means that have you run into or had experience with individuals? I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but I have to get these out. Where the secrets have been so embedded that they're not only secrets that they're not discussing, but the denial factor has prevented people from really accepting the fact that this is a secret that's deep-seated, but it's essential that you begin to talk about this in order for you to progress in terms of your recovery. Have you had any experience?
Yeah, that's a trick of the addiction. Okay, that's the first thing the addiction says. Dr. Dickerson, you're a psychotherapist. I want to talk about when my mother dropped me down a flight of stairs, and I was traumatized, by that. And so I want to talk about that. So let's focus on that, Dr. Dickerson. But you see, Dr. Dickerson is also a substance abuse counselor and an expert in addiction. So when I hear that, I'll listen to it and I'll be nice. And then I'll say, but let me ask you a question before I talk about your mother dropping you down a flight of stairs. Okay, Dr. Dickerson, did you pick up this weekend? Huh? Oh, you didn't hear that. I asked, did you pick up this weekend? Did you drink anything this weekend? He said, well, yeah, I had a taste. That's your problem.
Right.
Okay, that's your problem. So remember last time we discussed about the difference between mental health approach and alcohol counseling approach?
Absolutely.
The mental health person believes that Johnny drinks because Johnny has problems, because Johnny's mother dropped him down a flight of stairs. And it was so traumatic that, as a matter of fact, she dropped him down a flight of stairs in the projects. Those are different types of stairs, okay? So therefore, we're going to get into that, okay, for 2 years. Okay. However, an alcoholism counselor doesn't buy into that. An alcoholism counselor doesn't believe that Johnny's drinking is the outcome of falling down a flight of stairs. An alcoholism counselor believes that Johnny's drinking is the problem.
Right.
Okay? Johnny only becomes known as an alcoholic after he drinks.
Right.
Because when he drinks, not when Joe drinks, when Johnny drinks, Johnny acts out. Okay? Okay, that's, so people who cannot drink safely, okay, they are called unsafe drinkers.
Absolutely.
Okay? And let me just say this before we go off the air. Every year between October 31st, which is Halloween, to January 1st, which is New Year's Day, we can predict the number of highway fatalities.
1 million.
Okay, we can know it's about 400. It's about 400. 400. It borders between 410, 425 people that we know are going to die from alcohol, drug-related accidents. Okay.
I'm sorry. The 1 million is a new drug addicts. They come during that period of time. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, let me just go back and say it again. We can predict 400 people are going to die on the highways during the holiday season. I'm just trying to make a point. Okay. Now, these people that are going to die, that number, okay, would not die if people didn't drink.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. You see, so the problem isn't Johnny's mother dropping him down the flight of stairs or Dr. Leon Dickerson, the psychotherapist. The problem is the drinking. Okay. So if you can get an alcoholic or a drug addict, okay, or a sex addict or whatever they do to stop watching porno between the hours of your work, so you can't help yourself, or then if you can get them to stop that behavior, then the consequences of that behavior will stop.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We have to go. We have come to the end of our hour. And Mr. Evans, I didn't even get past the first page.
I know, but maybe next week we can continue.
Well, let's get into it, because I see now you're ready. I'm seeing you're ready to get into things now, but that's good. I want you to jump right in, cut me right off, because when I happen to be talking about things that I'm sort of familiar with, I tend to run on. Okay, so you're going to.
I appreciate it. I truly appreciate it.
You're going to have to jump in there. Okay, everybody, thank you for listening to Mental Health and Better Living. I'm your host, Dr. Leon Dickerson. My telephone number to my private practice is 212-289-6012. And if you happen to be a counselor that's dipping and dabbing, call Dr. Dickerson at 212-289-6012, because I know there's a lot of y'all out there. Bye.
Bye.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Mic check, mic check.
Keep it locked on WHCR 90.3 FM.
Okay.
New York.
Variedades latinas es música, alegría, entretenimiento, farándula, deportes, noticias, comentarios y mucho más. Variedades latinas es música, alegría, entretenimiento, farándula, deportes, noticias, comentarios y mucho más. Variedades latinas es música, alegría, entretenimiento, farándula, deportes, noticias, comentarios y mucho más.
Mic check, mic check.
Keep it locked on WHCR 90.3 FM.
Okay.
New York.
Mic check, mic check.
Keep it locked on WHCR 90.3 FM.
Okay.
New York.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Yo sé que Dios me tiene a mí lo mío. Yo sé que Dios me tiene a mí lo mío. No me voy a desesperar, no me voy a desesperar, no me voy a desesperar, no me voy a desesperar. Yo sé que Dios me tiene a mí lo mío. Yo sé que Dios me tiene a mí lo mío. No me voy a desesperar, no me voy a desesperar, no me voy a desesperar, no me voy a desesperar. Aunque no tenga trabajo, aunque todo vaya mal, sigo agarrado de Dios y no me voy a soltar, porque yo sé que Dios me tiene a mí lo mío. Yo sé que Dios me tiene a mí lo mío. No me voy a desesperar, no me voy a desesperar, no me voy a desesperar, no me voy a desesperar. Sé que hay momentos difíciles que el diablo quiere inventar, pero me agarro de Dios y no me voy a soltar, porque yo sé que Dios me tiene a mí lo mío. Yo sé que Dios me tiene a mí lo mío. No me voy a desesperar, no me voy a desesperar, no me voy a desesperar, no me voy a desesperar.